Does your business operate in the UK? After Brexit, the UK will no longer be part of the EU competition system. This means that the EU will no longer be investigating UK elements of mergers or anti-competitive conduct in the UK, such as companies colluding to fix prices. This important work will now be led and run by the Competition and Markets Authority here in the UK instead. If your business is considering a merger or is subject to an ongoing investigation, you should take legal advice on how to comply with both EU and UK regimes once we leave the EU. Go to gov.uk to find out how competition rules, including block exemptions and damages, will apply to you after we leave the EU.
Does your business operate in the EU or across the UK-EU border? UK businesses operating in some EU countries and specific sectors will be required to make changes to the way they operate and structure their business after Brexit. UK citizens who own or run business operations in an EU country may need to comply with different requirements after Brexit. Branches or representative offices in the EU may also need to comply with extra company law requirements. You may wish to seek professional advice or contact the government of the country in which you operate for more information. It's important that UK companies carrying out a cross-border merger complete this before the UK leaves the EU. Go to gov.uk to read the guidance on structuring your business when the UK leaves the EU and check the requirements of specific EU countries.
Do you import goods to the UK from the EU? If your business buys goods from the EU, you can register for a new system which makes importing easier in the period after Brexit. These are called Transitional Simplified Procedures and will give you time to get used to new customs arrangements. Transitional Simplified Procedures, known as TSP, also allow you to delay submitting a full customs declaration and paying duty, which means you can move your goods through customs quicker and with less paperwork. To register, you will need an EORI number issued by the UK, which starts with GB and is 12 digits long, and a VAT registration number if you have one. And your company must be established in the UK. It only takes 10 minutes to make an application online, and if you're successful, you will receive a confirmation letter within a few days. Go to gov.uk to find out how to import goods using TSP and apply today. Do you export goods to the EU? Exporting will change after we leave the EU. There are different procedures you'll need to follow and things you'll need to check before you are ready to export after Brexit. First, you'll need to check with the people moving your products, like your postal service, courier or haulier, that they have the right information from you to export. You should also check that the people you're selling to are ready to bring your goods into their country, following the right custom processes and with the right paperwork. If you're exporting goods permanently, you will need an EORI number issued by the UK. You'll also need to decide whether to use a customs agent or make declarations yourself. Depending on what you're exporting, there might be other things you'll need to do to get your business ready. For example, changing the labelling on the packaging of your goods or applying for export licenses. Also, you should consider if there are any exporting processes that could help your business to keep goods moving quickly. Go to gov.uk to find out more about the steps you'll need to follow to export to the EU after Brexit.
Are you planning on placing manufactured goods on the EU market? If your business places goods on the EU market and plans to continue to do so, there are steps you need to take to make sure you can after Brexit. You'll need to check what kind of process you need to follow to be compliant. This depends on the kind of products you sell. You'll also need to check your legal responsibilities, and if you need to appoint someone in the EU to be responsible for certain tasks. If you don't check, you may not be able to place your products on the EU market after Brexit. Go to gov.uk to find out what you need to do to check you are compliant with regulations on manufactured goods.
Do you often travel to the EU for business? After Brexit, to continue to travel to some countries in the EU and the EEA, you will need either a visa or work permit. If you are a UK national and often travel for work to the EU, Iceland, Liechtenstein, Norway or Switzerland, you need to check if you need a visa, work or residence permit. You may need all of these if you are travelling to provide or sell services or you are on a placement. This will apply to all businesses and self-employed persons, including those who work in the goods sector. For example, transporting or selling food, machinery or clothes. At the moment, employers and their workers and self-employed people only need to pay social security contributions, like national insurance, in one country at a time. This may change after Brexit. Employees and self-employed people may need to make social security contributions in both the UK and the country in which they are working. Also, if you are seeking for recognition of a UK qualification in an EU country, you will need to check the European Commission's guidance. You'll need to look at each country's own rules about working on a permanent, temporary or occasional basis. Go to gov.uk to find out about travelling to the EU for business after Brexit.
Do you sell goods in the UK? When the UK leaves the EU, a new UK product marking, the UKCA marking, will be used to show that certain products comply with different health, safety and environmental requirements. This will work just like the CE marking. You will need to check if you need to apply the UKCA marking now. This will depend on the kind of product you sell and other important criteria. In most cases, you can carry on using the CE marking. If you do not check, you may have to stop selling your products in the UK once we leave the EU. Go to gov.uk to check if you need to apply the UKCA marking and how to do it.
Do you buy goods from or sell goods to the EU? If your business buys goods from or sells goods to the EU, you will need an EORI number issued by the UK before Brexit. This number will start with GB and is 12 digits long. You might have one already. If you don't, you won't be able to move your goods. Over 170,000 VAT-registered businesses have already been issued an EORI number by the UK. If you're new to trading or you are not VAT registered, you need to apply for one. It only takes 10 minutes and your number will be issued within a couple of days. A small number of traders will also need an EORI number issued from the EU. If you're buying goods from the EU or selling goods to the EU, it is unlikely that you will need an EORI number issued by an EU country. This is because the person you are buying from or selling to in the EU will usually be responsible for dealing with EU customs. But if your business is the one dealing with EU customs, for example, you have an EU branch of your business receiving your goods, then you will need an EORI number issued by the EU too. You can get this EORI number from the customs authority in the EU country you first conduct trade with. Go to gov.uk to check what you need to get an EORI number and start your application.
Does your organisation receive personal data from the EU or EEA? If your organisation receives personal data from an EU or EEA organisation, like customer names and addresses, or staff information, such as working hours or payroll details, you will need to take action to make sure you can continue to run your business as usual after Brexit. To continue running as normal, you might need to include new legal clauses in your existing and new contracts with EU organisations. These will ensure you can still receive this data. Make sure you check so you can continue to share the personal data you need to run your business and maintain data sharing partnerships in the EU. If you only send data from the UK to the EU, you do not need to take action. Go to gov.uk to find out how to ensure you can legally receive personal data from the EU or EEA. Are you a haulage driver? The paperwork you carry to transport goods into the EU will change after Brexit. Drivers will need new documentation to drive in the EU after the UK leaves the EU. These documents will include an international driving permit, motor insurance green card, and customs paperwork for the goods you carry. You should check what new documents and paperwork you need. If you don't, you may face delays transporting your goods across EU borders. You can check you have the right licenses, paperwork, and customs documentation online, but also ask your manager about the new documents you need. You must not attempt to cross the border unless you are confident you have the right documents. Go to gov.uk to find out more about the right paperwork you need for you, your vehicle, and the goods you carry.